Well, hello, friends. Andy Saluda here from the Hollywood Full Gospel Baptist Cathedral in Amityville, New York, in the Queens Ministry of New York City. And this is our weekly Clergy Roundtable. I'm so delighted that you are here, that you've joined us today. Let me push out to, let me go as far west as we are represented today, and then I'll work our way back east. So that takes us to Iowa.
Good morning, Bishop, and all my colleagues. I greet you in divine love today. This is Bishop-elect, Bishop Desmond Helen Seaster from Waterloo, Iowa, from the Full Gospel, Koinonia Full Gospel Baptist Church. And I am so happy to be here this morning. God bless you all.
God bless you. God bless you, Bishop Designate. And then from Iowa, we're going to come a little further east, and that would be North Carolina.
Well, grace and peace. Hi, I'm Archbishop Anthony Slater, the senior pastor of Tehillah Church Ministries, and we are excited about being on this morning.
Thank you, sir. And from North Carolina, we're going to go to Northern New York, upstate, Buffalo.
Grace and peace to one and all. I am Bishop Jeffrey Bowens, pastor of the Love Alive Fellowship. As you can see, I got Love Alive in the corner. I will be making that adjustment. But in the meantime, blessings to my colleague, and we look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you, sir. And then we close out with my neighbor here on Long Island.
God bless you, everyone. Bless you, bless you, bless you. I'm Pastor Diane Seaman, pastor of Good Samaritan Ministries in Central Reach, New York. So glad to be with you once again.
And again, I'm Andy Saluda of the Hollywood Full Gospel Baptist Cathedral of Amityville, New York, and the Queens Ministry of New York City. Beloved, the topic I'd like to place on the table for us to gnaw on, so to speak, is that this is Black History Month. And so throughout the month, we will be celebrating Black history. And typically, when we talk about or even think about Black history, our mind, perhaps even unfortunately, immediately goes to slavery, almost as the commencement or the start of our history. Certainly that is not the case. Our history goes all the way back to the beginning of history itself. There is a glorious past that precedes Columbus and the arrival of Europeans to the New World. And those are the areas that we typically talk about: Reconstruction, Great Migration, Harlem Renaissance. But there's a great deal of history that has taken place here of late. I would say since 2008. In this postmodern era. So that's the topic I want to place on the table, and invite you all to respond to a celebration of history, but a more recent history. What do you think has taken place here of late that has such an impact on where we are today?
Well, the most apparent thing that has happened, of course, was the presidency of Barack Obama. I mean, that was like the apex of a mountaintop experience. That was a watershed moment for the people of God. I think that we had thought that we had arrived when Obama became president. I thought, we thought that a lot of the racial issues would be subsided and put to the side. But we discovered as time went on that this thing is more rooted and more in depth than we thought. And the idea of Barack Obama becoming president made some people very sour. And so they wanted to make sure that that didn't happen again. But I think that was the crescendo, if you will, of the Black experience. I mean, there was such a celebration, such a jubilation, such a expectation of what the future holds for people of color. And but now we know that it's a possibility, that all things are possible to those who believe. And so we're grateful for that watershed moment, Bishop Luter, that occurred with Barack Obama.
Amen. And it didn't stop there, because I believe that one of the most par excellence of God's transformation is when now we have a vice president that's a woman of color, Michelle Obama. She was a powerful woman also. But with Kamala Harris, I think that was another statement to say that the God's transformation is still happening. And I believe that we see that in her, and even with the resistance in that, I believe when God has his hands on something, you can't stop it.
I would wholeheartedly agree. And, the administration and the tenure of Barack Obama came under a great deal of scrutiny and criticism. And certainly after his first 2 years, as you said, Bishop Bowens, it's almost as though America woke up and said, oh, we didn't really mean that. Every 50 or 100 years, America goes through this very brief mood where they want to do the right thing and they want to make amends for the past. We saw that in the wake of the Civil War with Reconstruction, but it only lasted 10 years. And then we've seen it at other periodic moments in our history where America makes this grand gesture toward liberalism and progressiveness and tried to make amends for some of their past deeds. And I think that the election of Barack Obama was one of those moments. It's very interesting to me. William Clinton was asked in the early moments of his ministry, do you ever think that there will be a Black president? And he predicted that perhaps in another 50 or 60 years, we would see a Black president. And so for us to have seen a Black president in 2008 was decades before any of us thought that would come to pass. I certainly never thought I would see it during my lifetime. And even though he was held hostage and the constructs of government prevented him from doing so many of the things that he had the potential to do. Of course, he did get the Affordable Care Act through and some other major things. But for me, just him getting there was the accomplishment. If he didn't do anything else, if he wasn't able to do any of the things that we had hoped he would have been able to do or predicted that he would have been able to do, just the acquisition of the office by a Black man in this country was a momentous accomplishment in and of itself. Everything else was gravy. And so for the, and I don't want to call the names of the scholars and the other personalities who have criticized Barack Obama and have suggested that he didn't do all that he could have done. I would remind us that prior to Barack Obama, we had a Shirley Chisholm, we had a Jesse Jackson, we had an Al Sharpton, but none of them ever had a real chance. Barack Obama getting to the White House was the major accomplishment.
Well, right there, I think that if I'm going to say anything, what you said, this point was very pertinent. But the fact that people, the ones that talk about who shoulda, coulda, what shoulda, coulda been done, are the ones who are not doing anything, and the major ones who are criticizing. And that has not ever changed, because if it coulda, shoulda, would have been done, then they shoulda, would have done it. They certainly should have stepped up to the plate in some way. We're easy to criticize. I see it. I prayed for it. I didn't know if it would happen. I really didn't know if we would or we wouldn't. I honestly didn't. I was glad when we did. I was ever so glad. And yet I watched people recoil, if you will, in a way, and not Caucasian people, but Black people. It's like, we're either all of this and we can do what we want, or he's not doing anything that we want him to do. So I kind of sat back and said, what changes? And no matter what we do, there's some way we've got to find from Barack Obama and all that he did, and Michelle Obama, and certainly all that she implemented and put in. I thought she was going to be the next president, to tell you the truth. I was hoping that we could move forward in some way, find some way to move forward without going 15 steps backwards, because it kind of bothers me that since Obama's not there, and because we don't have that figure that once the, if you will, figuratively, once the idol is removed, we crash, that we're not doing what we need to do, because we can't see that in front of us. We can't see God either, but we still move on in Christian aspects. So there's a lot more to be done. I think 2008 to 2018 to now, it's just, I see that we've moved ahead. a little, but I see us looking back for what we missed. And that's a stopgap that we have to overcome. That's now what we have to overcome. Otherwise, everything we fought for in 2008 is for naught.
Well, and can I insert this, because I do believe that history repeats itself. You know, coming out of the Civil War, there were these 10 years of prosperity and advancement and progress of Black folk, Reconstruction, 1866 to 1876. But on the heels of that was the birth of Jim Crow and legal segregation and the Black codes. It's almost as though there was a retaliation to those 10 years of progress. Do you not think that the advent of Donald Trump in the immediate aftermath of Barack Obama is kind of a repeat of history, that the 10 years of progress that we had with Reconstruction, on the heels of that came Jim Crow, on the heels of that came the Ku Klux Klan, on the heels of that came Plessy versus Ferguson, and on the heels of Barack Obama in 2008 to 2016 came Donald Trump, came the Tea Party, came Make America Great Again. And these last 4 years that we have incurred, to me, has been a retaliation to the fact that America did elect a Black man to be president of the United States.
Well, I agree. But really quickly, it's culturally, let me put it that way, culturally, we get to an apex and it's like, oh, we there. We ain't got to do nothing else. And we sit and allow these things to seep in while people are plotting and getting stronger from the time we were ahead up until the time that we're ready to fall into a hole again. And that, I think, is a critical downfall that people of color have. Once they got it, they got it. You know, it's like, I got the new suit. I'm it. I'm on the block. I'll stroll. And I'm good till the suit wears out. I'm good till it falls apart. Then what am I going to do? And I think we have that's a kind of simple way of putting it. But that's what I see. We're too complacent when we get one step ahead instead of wanting to go the 5 steps ahead. Well, we good now. We good now. We got it. There's just no impetus to take it to the next level. And I don't know how we get people, inspire them enough to get to the next level. Because the movies that I've been watching, well, the one I watched last night, bless you, it seems that when you get to one place and you get up there and you get ahead, you get into the mix of feel good, and you get to the mix of I've made it, and my identity crisis comes in, and I can't lower myself, and whatever happens around you doesn't even matter. And that's where we lose, because it does matter, and we can't drop that ball. We've been dropping the ball forever.
Don't you think?
Just for a moment, I think that what Bishop Luter had mentioned about history repeating itself, I think that I agree with that. But I think the time, you can say what you want. Under Trump, we had wonderful things happen in the Black community. But when we started with the same person that was with Obama, we seem to be going in a whole nother direction. Spiritually, everything that the scriptures speak of, we're coming against now. And so this is not this platform for that. But I think that we need to look at the big picture, because the statistics don't lie. Numbers don't lie if you get the right numbers. And so, but my whole view of what we've been talking about, I'd like to highlight Colin Powell, General Colin Powell. Now, Obama is up in a whole nother area, but Colin Powell was in the mix of dealing with both sides. And he was basically, you know, whether you're talking about right wing or left wing, he was in the middle of the fight, you know. And I think that someone from the South Bronx, and one of his quotes I would like to share, he said, "Get mad and get over it. Get mad and get over it." And I think that can be applied to so many things. We have a right to get mad at some of our statistics, some of our things that's happening, even in my community. And so I think that we need to get mad and find the solution of why we won't have to get mad again. And I think part of it is the family coming together. I think one thing Obama did, I love the aspect of his view of the family. That blessed me. Out of a whole thing, we ain't had no crazy scandals. They made fun about us having watermelon on the lawn, and the fried chicken was everywhere, but he was class to the end. And I thank God for that we have that image we can look up to as a family. I just wish that the church would arise again, where we can be a people of power, a people of that we can watch, the epitome of what a man or a family or woman should be. And I think that we have a great deal to go forward with and to bring forward so that we will be looked at as something in history. So I give my shout out to Colin Powell, and I thank God for him and all the military things that he would have done, and personally as well as lack of scandal.
Thank you, Archbishop. I think we are in a multifaceted battle, both spiritually, whether we look at the Democrats or the Republicans, and we have to keep that in mind. We have to have the discernment when we see injustice taking place in any administration or the treatment of people. Those kind of things are of great consequence and of great importance. We know that biblically, so we certainly have to keep our eye, but as a Black man, as a man of African descent, to see someone rise, there's been, in many industries, we have seen people of color rise to the occasion, whether it was a Denzel Washington winning the Oscar. These things were important because they were breaking down these barriers that says that people of color could not do these various activities. And they did them with excellence. And you all know that anytime that we have to do something, 9 times out of 10, we have to do it 10 times better than the next person in order to arrive at a place. So we celebrate, I remember, the Super Bowl is going to be coming up this week. And there was a quarterback with the Washington Redskins, and he came from Grambling College, and he got out there and they were talking about the quarterback of the Denver Broncos. And he got up there and threw 5 touchdowns in a Super Bowl. Because Blacks couldn't be quarterbacks, Blacks couldn't be coaches, Blacks couldn't be general managers. And we're still fighting this fight and this battle, as Bishop Luter had informed us, that every time it seems like we go up, somebody is plotting to try to take us down. It's the crab mentality. And so we constantly have to deal with that. So we have to struggle. So we thank God for the Jim Harris's, the quarterback for the Washington Redskins, I believe his name. No, Doug Williams. I'm sorry, Doug Williams. And Doug Williams threw 5 touchdowns. So we always had to do better. With that last administration, I don't know where we would be if we would have had to allow that to remain in office. We would be in a very bad place. There was a dark cloud over the nation and over the world, and they were taking us down deeper into that hole. But we thank God that God has put something within each one of us to rise to the occasion and to keep the ball moving forward and continue in the struggle.
Amen. I just like to say, it's people like Bishop Luter and all of you that are on here that you have to tell the story. We have to tell our story, because if we don't tell it, no one else will. And it needs to be recognized. It needs to be for all, just not the bad things, but the good things, and appreciate it. So it reminds us that we really do have to tell the story, because we contributed a lot to our history, to the history period. I had the opportunity this weekend. I think I sat in on a US and UK race summit, and I was so enlightened. And Bishop Luter, you probably know Dr. Nunnery, I mean, he just spoke on things that I did not realize that many of us, because we hear of a few things, but our people have been rich, and the history has been rich for many years. They own insurance companies, all kind of things. They were billionaires. And what really amazed me on this summit, there were young people from Brazil and from Japan and from Vietnam and from Australia and the UK that celebrate our history. And so we're all over the world. So we need to tell our own story. We need to keep telling it. Yes, we are resilient. We have come through struggles, and we're going to always have struggles. As Bishop Luter said, there's always, to me, there's some struggles or sufferings before victories, and then it repeats itself over again. But we are a people that are rich, and we are people that God has his hands on. I've always believed what the Bible says, he's always on the side of the oppressed, but we have come forth and to continue to do that. It's not just about slavery. That's why some of the stats have been hidden, because we need to tell our own story. We need to correct some of the things that have been said. And it's awesome, because we were not just slaves. We were more than that. And it seems like now with social media, the stories are being told even more, and our young people, it's being passed on. So I thought it was very enlightening, and we're everywhere, and we have a rich history.
I also believe that, especially now times, I think that we have to regain our own identity. I believe that I watched so much. You know, we were just talking about, I think Bishop Bowen talked about that crab mentality, and we always view the other side having the good old boy system. My problem is I like the good old boy system. I think it works. But if we learn the system and push our people up who are credible, who are experienced, who have their resume speaks of what they're crying out for, and push them up. And even if they have the potential, we have to learn to push our own up, just like the other cultures do. And when we learn that, I think we'll get so much further. But what has been the history of what I've been watching, as soon as we get somebody that's good, that's able to push us, we tend to throw stones at them. And I think that we need to change that narrative. And it's not that I believe the other side. I think that we are people of color. We are resilient. Listen to look at our past. We've been through so much. So I expect more from us. And that it sounds like sometimes I view for the other side. No, I just believe that we have the ability, we have the goods to go further. But I think that we have to bring our standards back, because we can't blame all this stuff on, because during the earlier parts, we talked about Bishop Luter's always going back to history. During slavery, marriages and stuff, the family stayed together. And until we started commenting, or rather trying to be equal with somebody who was ahead of us in the race, we start losing stuff. We have the ability to go further. We have the ability to build our family, because guess what? We were the ones who raised everyone else's children. How about that? We were the ones who was helping everybody else be profitable. We were the ones out in the crops. We were the ones. So if we could do that for another, why can't we do it for ourselves? We have people in the right places right now and Tibet can make things happen, but we still shucking and jiving. We still have our entertainers are still doing the same old thing, looking out for self. I hate to say it like that, but have we not forgotten where we've come from? Our preachers are doing the same thing. We end up having different circuits, even as ministry. I mean, I was told that I have to get off the chitlin circuit because people in my culture don't take care of me like I deserve. And unfortunately, there's a truth. That's why we lose our musicians to the world. We don't take care of our own. And we have to change that narrative. We have to really change that narrative. We have to look at our own self-worth and put us where God intended us to be. And I think that if you do that, we'll be virtually unstoppable.
That goes back, or should I say, doesn't that go back? I feel it goes back to, having to, I think culturally, in many places with people of color are, in order to get a beginning, to get a foothold, you had to learn to manipulate that place. And a lot of it sometimes was negative manipulation. And our children saw it, and that's what they learned. And we've become expert at negative manipulation. And it's not getting us where we need to get. I believe we can have things too. But if we don't bring principles and morals to the table along with our talent, we still lose.
Mm-hmm.
We still lose.
I recently saw a movie called Judas and the Black Messiah. And I had went past it about 3 or 4 times, and I taped it and I really didn't get it right. But recently I saw the whole movie, and it was talking about the Black Panther movement practically, and how that they were trying to make a difference in their community with feeding the hungry, educating the children. They were doing all the right positive things to help the community. But then there was a plant, if I may use that term, a spy that was placed in the midst of the same color skin. That was so extraordinarily amazing that this person will see someone trying to do all the good in the world, as Archbishop Slater had said, and then turn around and someone of your own ethnicity will go in there and know that these people are about to be set up, shot, killed, and the whole 99 yards, and yet go with it because they were trying to save their own skin.
Well, do I know?
That left an impression on me, that, and it was based on a true story. It wasn't because the person who did it came on after the program and said it is what it is. And so I think that those are the things that we have to guard against and defend, not having a tendency of jealousy and envy when we see someone else moving forward or advancing, and there's so much competition, rather than holding up one another's arms, rather than helping each other, and rather than reaching out and helping others once we get into a place of influence. I think that is the key, that we look out for one another.
Absolutely.
But how,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. How do we, I mean, I'm smiling, Bishop Bowles, not because you're right, you're 100% right. But that's why the scripture says, choose this day whom you will serve, because money wins all. We sell each other for money. Trafficking, human trafficking, okay? You talking about money. They don't care if it's an old dog or a young dog. It's how much you're going to pay and for what. People don't have, they don't. I mean, people have, I do a lot of work with that. And it's like, there is no conscience. You can't, people have to have it on the inside. You have to expect it and deal with it, but people will do anything that they can. It's about their status. And especially in Black world, if all the Blacks are getting put down and you getting paid $500 for everything you bring and everyone you bring, you have status in the community and you've gained a place where people are afraid of you. So therefore, you roll like that. So it's not about being nice in the church. We need to become a bunch of Peters, really.
But you know what? We can't do that. And Bishop Luter is getting ready to come in, but I want to say something. You know, I'm quick to go right, you know, and go another direction. But Bishop Luter, in his slick and tactful way, he'll say informational things. You need to, have you considered this? And say stuff that make me say, wait a minute, and change my whole thinking. I just want to say that as a father, he does that. He does that. No, that's wrong. He said, have you considered this? And then because I honor him, I have to go back and study what he just said and find out that I have to adjust my thought back. And that makes it do. That's what we need in this hour, because sometimes we think we got it. We think we got all the facts. We think we know what's going on. And all of a sudden the father says, but have you looked at this? Like the Black Panthers, I heard nothing positive about the Black Panthers until I became an adult. Everything I've heard was there was a radical bunch that was trying to take over, that was trying to oppress everybody else, but never heard about the feeding. never heard about them out there, never heard none of that until I got to be an adult. And it's the same thing I've been saying. I'm finding out stuff now in my adulthood about even my culture. That's the travesty. That's the issue that I have. And I don't believe CRT is going to do it. I just think we need to do a complete real history. What really happened? Not what the way you want to change it to meet your agenda. What really happened? What did we really do? What can I be proud of? What can I change? And how can I be effective in the future?
And I piggyback on that. And I'm coming back to you, Archbishop, because you mentioned how vibrant our spirituality has been in the past. And, you know, when I look back over the landscape of our history, we have produced a number of different religious personalities. And I didn't say Christian personalities, I said religious personalities. I mean, yes, we had the L.K. Williams and the George Lyles at the beginning of our narrative here in this country, but we've also produced some very exotic religious personalities, like a Father Divine and a Sweet Daddy Grace and a Muhammad, Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Moorish science movement, the Hebrew Israelites. What is going to be on the role of spirituality in the future? You mentioned that since 2008, we've had some scandals and we've had some embarrassing moments, even within the Christian community. Are we going to be able to salvage the community of faith that all of us are identified with and take it into the future?
Wow, that's major, because I believe this, and I believe the Lord had gave me this for our theme for the rest of the year, is that it's called Kingdom Resurgence. I believe that God is calling us to return what he intended us to be, not what we created. And to do that, the whole essence will be love. Love is hard. Love is tough. Love is patient. Love is kind. And if we don't believe if we don't act on what we believe, we have misrepresented God altogether. Because of the fact is that we're going to have to redo some things that where we think we should have vengeance, and the Bible says vengeance is mine, said the Lord. We've got to do what's right. And in this moment, I think that we have the greatest opportunity to show God in the earth. We have big churches who are struggling. We have little churches who are thriving. What happens when we begin to start helping each other? Why is it that we keep getting divided? And if you listen to this whole atmosphere, it's designed to separate us, even through COVID. You can't come to my family because you're not vaccinated. One is vaccinated, one is not vaccinated. Well, you black and I'm white. We have to come together as the body. Now, I've been on a journey. I watched something Bishop Golphin had extended to us to listen to. And I am, you know, I'm talking about roll. I'm just messed up I'm just totally messed up on some things about the righteousness of white. And that sounds crazy, but it's amazing of the mindset of this statistical move. How we notice that you'll find a lot of white churches, pastors who are white, and black people are there, but very, very few black pastors, and you have white people who are there because it's out of order in their upbringing. It's out of order because they believe that they should always be in charge. And you could say this and say, oh, it's not. No, I'm in a lot of Caucasian circles, but I also know that I am welcomed in there because I'm non-threatening, because they feel like they can toe me the right way until they go off, you know. And I give people an ample, let me see who you are. And then sometimes I have to remove myself before I do something that's detrimental to my ministry and my reputation. I've learned that instead of blasting on everything, because every battle is not mine. But here's the key. We have to get back, and as Bishop Luder was saying, we have to get back and begin to restore who we are. Where are we going with this church? The church is changing. We can't avoid it. It's nothing that's this young community, this community now, these young people, they're not studying our courses, they're not studying our college. We have lost that to a point. We have some traditionalists that we're still keeping it. I still have my garments, I still use them. But if I'm gonna get a generation that's coming up, I gotta change my method, not my message, my method. Because YouTube and the media, oh, they're shifting. We got this metaverse that's coming in. And if the church doesn't wake up, we're going to lose a whole bunch of people because now we're being censored. You can't even speak the truth if you don't know how to finesse it. So we have a responsibility. So when Bishop Luder invades the technology side, why can't I support him and what he's doing at that point? Why can't I just, listen, I don't know all that you're doing, but if that's your program, I'm going to get on it just because it's you. Because this is how we help each other get to the point where God be proud of us, that he can put you in the forefront. And even because we are not perfect, for we all have sinned and fall short before the glory of God, but we have to check our motives. Why do we do what we do? Helping one another.
So, Bishop Slater, I'm smiling because my question, everyone wanted to know why I put a church in Center Reach. I said, because that's where God landed me and that's where I live. 2 Hispanics, 6 whites, 1 Black that really doesn't come. My question is, why do we plant ourselves in the middle of Black communities where there are 17 other churches? Not because of me, not because of anything. It's a question. And Bishop Luder knows I am all over from Georgia back, Nassau, Suffolk City, and I see 17, 18, 6, 10, 12 Black churches all within 3 or 4 blocks. Why do we do that to ourselves? Why are we afraid to really pray and go forth? If we do, Jeremiah 29 is my favorite. I can't say 11, it used to be. But again, God put them in exile and deliberately had them mingle, mix, have children, build houses, get land so that they could connect other than that. Why are we not willing to connect? Why are we so comfortable where we are? It's just a question.
That's that's a thought that is very profound, Pastor Seaman, about the number of churches. Should there be a merger? And, or finding our precise assignment or our precise calling, I think is very, very key, because everyone is trying to outdo other people. And consequently, nobody is really expanding or growing. Make sure that, I would say, that you are called by God first and foremost when you go and start a church, and not by man, because some people are appointed there because they see the glamour in it. We find in the book of Acts, the 8th chapter, where it tells us about Simon the sorcerer, and he wanted what Peter them was having so he can sell it, and so forth and so on. So we have to be mindful of those kinds of scenarios, but making sure that we know what we are supposed to be doing, or that God has, specifically and explicitly appointed us to this work of ministry, and that there are some fruit that's coming from it. And then we have to humble ourselves when we find that maybe you might not be a pastor, maybe you might be an evangelist, maybe you might not be an evangelist, maybe you be a prophet, maybe you can be a servant or a deacon. Whatever your assignment is, that's where you should, plant yourself, rather than trying to compete with everyone else and having 10 churches on the same block.
Growing up in Brooklyn, New York, I remember on Fulton Street, that was Church Alley. I mean, every other building was a church. And, to the point that in the city of Goldsboro, there's a moratorium downtown, no more churches. If it's an existing church, it's good, but no more churches going in. And I'm gonna tell you here, let me tell you the wisdom in that for the city. The churches produce no tax base. So because of that, those same buildings are now occupied by retail stores, which pay taxes, so that the whole city can benefit by it. But we don't look at it that way. So we need to start a business. That's kingdom. We may transfer our spaces and start some businesses so that we all can eat. And that makes the difference. I'm gonna share this with you. I'm gonna show you an example. I have an African-American pastor who's extremely large here in the city of Goldsboro, who sent out a message called C for Community. I saw it. I thought it was fantastic. Then about 3 of my members came to me angry. C for Community. And they had 20 different pastors that's on this whole flyer, but I wasn't. Now, if anybody knows my lineage, you know what I do. I'm in more activity than 90% of most of the people that's on that flyer. And the pastor happened to be one of my students, former students with the episcopacy. And so, but my name was never mentioned. My picture was not, it didn't bother me because I'm doing the work. You know, God is going to reward me. It didn't bother me till my members start getting frustrated. And why are you out there? This is why I say that you shouldn't be going to their meetings and that. No, I'm everywhere. You know, meeting from the NAACP last night, as well as being a part of the opening prayer for the city council last night, because the other pastors don't make time to pray for in the city. That doesn't make sense to me. I'm their go-to. You know, and if I have opportunity to speak the word of the Lord out there through that mic to touch the people in the city of Goldsboro, I'm gonna do it. And I think that where we miss out on certain opportunities, and I make this statement is, it may not affect you as a leader, but your people could be affected by what happens. And so we have to be cognizant of what affects the sheep if you're a true shepherd. And so I would say, listen, we got to press on. We got to move forward. We got to celebrate God for who he is in our lives. And listen, not only that, let's celebrate each other. Not because I agree with everything that you're doing, but I see where you're going. I see what you're doing. And that's where my heart is. And my Bishop Goffin says that I am loyal to a fault. I didn't know how to take that at first, but he said, but that's true. If I say I'm with you, I'm with you. And that's always been my life, you know, growing up in the streets, you know, you ride or die, you know, your word is your bond. If you're going to say you're going to do something, then do it. Don't be backpedaling. I took that back from the world, but the church, seemingly, we jump on the first thing that's new and smoking, and we miss the assignment that God originally gave us. Mm-hmm. So we have a wonderful flair, but we have no substance. We have to make.
I would like to ask Bishop Luter a question in regards to that, because of his history knowledge. You know, is it something, Bishop, about a person having either recognition, influence of carrying the term of a pastor or reverend or doctor or what have you? Does that play a role in why we have so many churches on the block, or so many churches that have sprung up in the same area?
I think that's an excellent question, Bishop. You know, I have a term that I coined called the pursuit of the superlative. And there is something within us that chases whatever is the highest rung, level, or step on the ladder. And it's part vanity, it's part pride, but we don't ever want to see ourselves subordinate to those who are around us, whom we feel we are their equal or superior. Let me see if I can make it a little more practical. In the 1950s and 60s, when education was a premium in the Black community, especially amongst pastors, those preachers who were fortunate enough to get an undergraduate education were immediately called doctor in comparison to the other preachers in the community who had not the benefit of even an undergraduate education. I'm not even talking about a seminary education or an advanced education. I'm talking about the Sandy Rays and the Gardner Taylors had undergraduate degrees, but compared to their contemporaries who had no degrees, they were referred to as doctor. In the 50s and 60s, the highly sought after title was doctor. And after a while, everyone was a doctor. And the honorary degree was promoted and projected like the earned degree. What I'm saying is they minimized the distinction between an honorary degree and a earned degree. Now that was in the 50s and 60s. Now here we are in the 90s, just beyond 2000. And even when Bishop Morton, and I don't think he was aware of it, when he introduced the bishopric to the Baptist communion, remember, we had rejected the episcopacy because it was part of the connectional church. We were a congregational church, and we did not see that as a part of our DNA. But because of the prestige of the title and the pursuit of the superlative, after a while, that became the replacement for the title of doctor. What I'm saying is, what the title doctor was in the 50s and 60s, the title bishop became in the year 2000 and beyond. And I think you're right. I think there's just something that resides within us that refuses to be diminished in the eyes of others. So the higher the visibility of those people around us, it gives us an appetite for the same. Now, I want to set that aside because there is legitimate and authentic pursuit of ministry that is honest, but it gets a bit polluted because it's mixed in with this other attitude and this other mentality that I've been talking about here of late. And so sometimes it's hard to separate one from the other.
But Bishop, do people really understand that in many ways that elder, pastor, and overseer are synonymous? I mean, people are fighting for things that they don't have to fight for.
It depends on where your
now, when you say
is.
when you say synonymous, what do you mean synonymous?
Because equal to, when I know overseer is supposed to do one thing, elder does, but technically speaking, when I was researching the difference, because as overseer elect, I wanted to know why and what I was doing and what gave me the right to want to even accept that. And I had to look at it, and I'm like, well, if I'm doing it, and I was told I'm doing the work, that's fine. What is the work? It's the same work that a pastor is supposed to be doing, the building, the overseeing, the looking over of people and their situations and their souls. And the pastor should be doing, because you're supposed to lead your sheep, you're supposed to pour into them, whatever. And in order to do that, you must be an elder to begin with. So you're doing the work. That the titles that we have put together, like you're saying, who made this and who made that. When I first came into Baptist Costal world, it was just the collar, which was the tab, and because you knew me back then, and a black suit. That was it. All of a sudden, it's colors and differences and what you have and what you don't have in the garment. I love my garments, don't misunderstand me, but sometimes you have to wonder. I've been told many a day as pastor and as elder, because I sit anywhere. This is reserved for bishops, this is reserved for pastors, this is reserved for overseers. We have made it so conflicting that it's all about the title, and it's not about what God has sent you to do. And it bothers me. It has always bothered me.
Well, I can certainly understand the temptation to conflate the titles and flatten them into one or a single expression. I'll yield to Bishop Slater because this is really his area, but they're not the same, and they're not synonymous. The presbyterate is different than the episcopate, and the original church had distinct areas, and I won't even say levels, because when you look at that scripture that talks about fivefold ministry, at the end of that, it is all devoted to the task of upbuilding the church, that these are different gifts and roles that are in the church for the ultimate uplift of the church, not the uplift of the individual, but the uplift of the church. Now, I think that is perhaps where we have jeopardized and where we have gone astray, because we have taken that which was intended to uplift the church and we have used it to uplift the individual, where it is not the individual that was to be uplifted, but it was the work of the Lord, and all of it was to work in tandem with each other. But again, I'll yield to Bishop Slater because this is really his area. But it is not synonymous, because there are distinct terms and titles that come from previous language, like presbyterius and episcopus and didascalos and prophetess. So it's not the same, and we can't flatten and conflate them into one when they're not really one.
And I
Bishop?
think that, and I think that what we have to look at too is that we have made, as people, we have made such of a mess. And I understand, Pastor Seaman, what you're saying, because it's been prophetized across the board. We have bishops every other day. They're making bishops and they don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know what they're wearing, why they wear what they wear. And so we have to, as a part of the College of Bishops, those who are involved, these men and women, have to begin to start keeping the standard what it's supposed to be. As a bishop, I'm not even talking about the archiepiscopacy, because that's in another area of the episcopacy. And even some bishops don't even respect that whole title, but that's okay. So let's just use the term bishop as an episcopate. As a bishop, my assignment is to not only pastor pastors, but I have my own house. I talk to bishops who think differently than pastors. There's a whole nother story when you're dealing with bishops. Bishops are stressed out from pastoring leaders who are sometimes resistant for a greater truth, because they think they know, they've been in a position of knowing. And there's a whole nother level to identify who's who. Well, how do I know a police officer? They have a uniform. And when you go from one level to another, something changes. When you go to an officer, it goes from silver to gold. And so we to simplify what we're saying, but I get what you're saying, and we miss the whole function why we do this. We miss the point of souls. We miss the point that said, you have to worship me because I am the bishop. We missed all that. You know, there's one exalted, we exalt him, but we're first among equals. We're first among equals as bishops. And so as bishops, we have a responsibility to supervise. We have a responsibility to, when we're guarding the sheep and the shepherds, we have a responsibility to have our crozier, where we use the point to stab the wolf. We have our shaft to discipline. We have our hook to bring that sheep that's going away from the flock and pull them back in. We have an assignment, but we're dysfunctional in this hour. And that's why a lot of our younger generations are confused as what you stated, and we're moving away from, I don't understand all that, I'm leaving, because most of us in this system cannot explain what we're dealing with.
So thank you very much. I was praying that would be the outcome. So I really think if we're going to get our churches together, black, white, mix, whatever, that we need to have, I do my best to try and explain those things, but it is not, most certainly not my expertise. There are other things that I'm very well adept at. That's not one.
See, that's the wisdom.
So I can learn.
So if I want to bring, if I'm not an expert in church history. So if I want somebody to come in and teach church history, why can't I call Bishop Luter?
Exactly. Why? So is there a way that perhaps, I mean, even suggested that Bishop Luter puts out so many things and people come. I've been in for years. That's my ultimate teacher right there. So people come, people listen, people know the material, people want to know the material. And I think, I mean, out here, there have been at least 5 new churches put up by 5 young pastors and their wives. And they're good men, they're men of God. They're learning just like we all are. But I don't believe, in fact, I know that they don't know those differences. And I'm sure they're not the only ones. I want to know, so I ask and I understand. But there are people that, as long as they're functioning, they is the pastor, they don't care. And they will move up because their pastor will move them up. And the next thing you know, they're bishop so-and-so, and you can't tell them nothing. And that's where we fall. If we can't get it right in the church, in the house of God, how do we expect to get it right anywhere else?
Judgment begins in the house of God first. And I think that we have to look in our own cupboards, in our own areas, and find out what is happening. The greatest thing to do is to be the example. You don't have to challenge everything, but let them watch you. This is what I do. How do I become a faithful son? Be a faithful son. How do I become an example? Be the example. And sometimes it's lonely because people will attack you for not trying to be a part of everybody else. When you're different, things come your way. I'm a living. Listen, stuff has happened to me. I couldn't explain it nor duplicate it if somebody told me. I wish. And one day when you come down, when y'all come down or have you, I'll show you what it does, because I have not been in competition with anybody. And the ones who attacked me and still attack me, they look around me and want to know, how do I even exist when everything they put out there is to come against? But yet God seemingly elevates me into different places. I'm gonna show you something, how I didn't even ask. I'm going to be the grand marshal at a Black history parade in another city. How? With another senator. I just clear blue. Listen, Bishop, they want you to do something. What do you mean? Why me? And but believe it or not, the mayor who I saw last night of that city was so elated that it was going to be me. He was just, I don't know. But the point is, I didn't ask for it. Matter of fact, I knew nothing about the parade in the first place. And so how did this happen? And I'm going to be sitting with one of the senators of today. And so I'm excited about that. We can go ahead and dialogue and make some things and be positive and do something great for the area that we live in.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, we have run over today. This conversation has gotten us all caught up. Until next time, friends, go with peace, love, joy, and happiness. For the author of the same goes with you.